key factors of success. When we talk of success, we are referring to accomplishment, attainment, or achievement of purpose, desired purpose, goal, objectives, mission that the individual or the corporate entity has set for itself, or even as a society at large. Success is a desirable phenomenon in human experience. Every individual desires success. Corporate entities desire success. The nation at large desires success. So what is important for us to now look at is, what therefore are those factors that determine achievement of one's purpose, objectives, goals, and mission or vision that one has. So it is important for us to know that all these factors determine success in whatever form that is desired. Now, when we talk of objectives, which everybody must have, aims and objectives, which every individual desires or every entity wants, it is essential for us to now look at all these factors, which we believe very strongly that we can make use of, especially if we want to be successful in our endeavor or activities. The first key factor of success to be considered is the preparatory factor. Preparatory in the sense that it is foundational. It's just like laying the foundation for a structure. As it is said, foundation determines the structure. Not only the structure, the strength of the structure. So in order to achieve success in reasonable measure, it is important for us to consider the preparatory factor. How do we do it? From the outset, even in the course of going through the paths of success, this preparation becomes imperative. It is not just for us to say, yes, we have prepared, but the preparation is continuous at every stage and at every level. As we move towards the labyrinth of success, we need to be prepared. So this preparation as a factor becomes necessary when we are looking at all the capacities, the capabilities possessed by the individual or the corporate entity or the society at large. What are those things that we are capable of doing? What are those things that we have capacity for? We assess all these things when we are considering the preparatory factor. You are set to go or good to go if you are well prepared for any endeavor or activity, either as an entrepreneur or as an entity of whatever magnitude. There is need for preparation. Without adequate preparation, it is unlikely that success can be attained. So part of this preparation is to look at the resources available at the disposal of the sojourner on the path of success, because the path of success is not something that is so straightforward. It's not something that looks like 100-meter dash or like the crowd flies. It is not a bed of roses. So the path of success is strewn with thistles and thorns. Yes, tortuous, and one has to show some level of sacrifice. It is part of preparatory factor that the individual does some sacrifice. The sacrifice means that, you show concern for certain things. You do some things sacrificially. It's not something that you just find so easy. It is important for us in the course of preparing that we put everything into consideration, all the necessary things that we need to do into consideration, and we can say, okay, yeah, we are prepared. Otherwise, inadequate preparation or poor preparation for whatever activity or endeavor that we embark upon is not likely going to bring about success. But if we are prepared adequately, definitely success will come in any way that we look at it. Which kind of activities? Professional activities, even marital activities, marital relationship, there is need for adequate preparation. This is what we want to do, this is what we want to do, so that nothing is left out. A checklist can be prepared, maybe to-do list, to say, yes, after doing this, I'll do this. After this, one step after the other. Then in the course of doing this, having been satisfied that you have met all the criteria that are required to embark on the journey of success, then it is most likely that success will be achieved and will be attained. That is the first factor that we must consider. The second factor of success is learning. Learning is so important and so significant in the course of success, in the course of attaining success in life, because that has to do with being able to know, to have knowledge and understanding of what you have prepared for. The purpose, the objectives, the aims, the vision, the mission that you have. You need to learn, not just in terms of academic learning alone, but in terms of what you have been able to experience. What you can simply call streams of consciousness. The experience that you have in the course of attaining success in life. So this learning process may have to consider a lot of skills, that is the skills threshold or the skills set that one has. What you have been able to get in terms of your cognitive skills, your affective skills, or psychomotor skills, depending on which area you want to learn, whether formally or informally. And you can also learn from environment, how the situation presents, how the situations present themselves, and how things are done. What lessons have you learned from other people's experience? Or what lessons have people learned from your own experience? So listening to others is also a form of learning, because when you listen, you learn from others. And it is often said that the more we learn, the more we appreciate our level of ignorance. If one stops learning, then ignorance becomes residual, in the sense that By the time you continue to learn, you will be able to understand that a lot of other things, you'll be able to appreciate that there are a lot more to learn. As we speak, the whole world now is learning a new thing, especially with the coronavirus, this COVID-19 that is ravaging the entire world. Many nations in the world now are in the throes of coronavirus pandemic. Now, the scientists, the researchers, the economists, and all people all over the world, they are trying to learn a lot of things. So, a lot of people have been sent back to the classrooms under the tutelage of coronavirus. It's a new thing to learn. This is because it is a scourge that had never occurred before now. So, for people who have thought that yes, they have learned enough, then they now have new things to learn. So, learning is expansive. Learning is continuous. Learning is not something that one can simply say, yes, I've been able to complete it and there's nothing more to learn. For as long as we live, from cradle to grave, we'll continue to learn. Societies will begin to learn. Corporate entities will begin to learn. That is the essence of learning. Learning is an essential factor, a key factor of success. Without learning, it is unlikely that one will be successful. So you learn a lot of things from, not in education in the formal setting alone, but you learn from many things that present themselves. From traveling, from meeting people, relationship, you learn. Even from what you are doing, you learn how to do it better. Because there is need for improvement. There is need for making things better. You hone your skills. That is, you have skills within your skills threshold. You need to hone it, to improve it. H-O-N-E. You try to improve it in such a way that you will be better than you are. You must be able to understand that every day you learn more than what you knew the previous day. That is one key factor of success. We cannot overemphasize the significance of learning. The third factor of success, key factor of success, is articulation. Articulation, not in terms of your being eloquent or being fluent or being facile in the way you speak or being oratorical. No. Articulation has to do with being able to present the facts or details of the purpose, the aims, the objectives. We are looking at a situation whereby you have set objectives for yourself, you have set targets for your organization or for the society at large. What are those objectives? They must be reasonable, must be seen as reasonable. Not just be reasonable, they must be seen to be reasonable. They must be seen to be specific. They must be seen to be measurable. They must be seen to be achievable. They must be seen to be realistic. And timeline must be set also for such objectives explicitly, so that what you have purposed to achieve towards success will not be ambiguous. It will be unequivocal. That is part of articulation, being able to communicate. Just like we have said in the first factor, which is preparatory, it is important for us to gather sufficient information about what we set out to achieve. That thing that we want to succeed in, we need sufficient and adequate information to as we are preparing. So when you now come to articulation, it is there you'll be able to communicate much more those things that you have prepared for. That is the message that you are trying to pass across. You as the agent of success, because every man or woman or entity is an agent of success, meaning you either make or mar your own approach to success. So what you need to do in articulation factor is to be able to put all those things as priorities. What priorities have you set? What priorities have you been able to put together? All those things are important in articulation factor. How will people understand you? What message are you passing across without being awkward, without being clumsy, in a manner that will be so easy to understand? Communication must be effective. Part of articulation factor is being able to deploy necessary technology. Technology which would make what you have set out to achieve, what you have prepared to achieve, what you have learned about, will make it communicable. Something that people will be able to apply. You talk of application in technology. What is those? What are those things? What are those things that you intend to communicate? You can do so through technology, part of articulation factor. So we talk of ICT, the information, communication, and technology, which you as an individual or which entities can as well use in order to communicate much more effectively in order to achieve success. So articulation factor is important. Being able to present, to make a presentation that is clear, presentation that is explicit, with some reasonable measure of brevity, so that it will not create a sort of burden for those people who listen. So it must be concise, decisive in the course of doing it. So all these things must be put into consideration. That is the third factor. The fourth factor is the navigation factor. We are not looking at navigation factor in terms of maritime or aviation functions. We are looking at navigation in terms of the movement from one stage or one level to the other, especially in the course of achieving our purposes or objectives, or the goals that we have set for ourselves, or the targets that we have set. So what path are we taking? Are we moving to the left or to the right? Are we moving up or we are moving down? So these cardinal movements from different paths will denominate the navigation factor, whereby you try to know whether it is important for you to proceed or to recede or to be calm at a point in time, or you beat a retreat if need be. There are a lot of ways by which this can be done. You can reroute. You can say, yes, we are taking this path, or I'm taking this path, and I've discovered that this might not lead to immediate success. Let us pass through this other route. So there are a lot of ways by which you need to do that. So let us use the aircraft, for example. The aircraft must have prepared on the tarmac. Even before it gets to the tarmac, when it is being checked by the flight engineers, before anything can be done, it must have been done. All these preparations must have been done. The pilots and the cabin crew must have learned one or two things which they have to communicate to people in terms of articulation. These are things that you need to do, and other things like that. And when the aircraft is to take off, People are prepared for takeoff. People are communicated to. Passengers will have to know. The communication is not only within the aircraft. The air traffic controller too must have been communicating with the pilot in order for the takeoff to be successful. Now, having done that, the navigation begins in the sky. The aircraft gains altitude. The pilot, the co-pilot, having been able to do all the necessary things before takeoff, and mid-air, the navigation may be in terms of, there is turbulence or there is need to move up or down at a particular level based on the instruction of the air traffic controller. All these things are part of the navigation processes that take place in aircraft functions. And if turbulence is being experienced, the aircraft, like other aircraft in the sky, will have to be separated vertically and they have to follow the instructions. Do this, move up or move down. Increase your speed or you slow down. It depends on which instruction the pilot gets from the air traffic controllers. So in the same way it happens to individuals, in the same way it happens to organizations, corporate entities. The need for us to navigate properly. We can navigate change. We can navigate procedures. We can do lots of things like now that we have in the world the coronavirus scourge, a lot of navigation processes take place. For instance, organizations now say, well, their employees could work from home. The employees could come at a particular point in time. Marketplaces should be closed. There should be locked down at some places. Movements are restricted, and so on and so forth. All these things are geared towards ensuring that the world is successful in combating the pandemic. That is navigation. So part of navigation factor may be in terms of what are those things that you need to deploy? What are the methods that you need to put in place in order to achieve success? So you now have series of efforts being made. That is important. So you cannot just, as an individual, be going without any purpose or going aimlessly. So part of navigation is to say, yes, having gone this far, then I will turn to this, I will turn to this, in order for us to achieve success. Otherwise, one would just be like a routine robot. Yes, a routine robot that will just be doing things without any aim. So navigation factor guides the individual, the corporate entity, the society towards the right path. Now, you are passing through towards success. You want to achieve your aim, you want to achieve your purpose, you want to make sure that you set your goals. All these things are necessary. Take for instance, on the football field, the players, that is, the players on both sides, that is, the two teams, may have to be navigating in order to score a goal. You don't just go straight, you go sideways, whichever ways. It depends. You can back pass, you can pass to the left or this, you can shoot across, depending on the targets. That is navigation factor. It is important for us to look at that factor and use the faculty that we have gained from preparation, the faculty that we have gained from learning, the faculty we have gained from articulation, those things that we have been able to set as priorities. Then we can now deploy this in the course of navigation. So those things will provide for us what we can simply refer to as resource bags. That is, bags of resources, not in terms of money, but in terms of the knowledge that we have acquired, knowledge that we have gained and which we can apply. And that is where navigation comes in. So when there are challenges, that is where the navigation factor comes to bear. Yes, the navigation factor comes to bear in the sense that, it is that thing that will now tell us, these are the things that we need to do in order to surmount these challenges. And that is what the entire world is doing now, looking at different ways, physical or social distancing, and other things that they are doing. Wash your hands, do whatever thing like that. They are navigating. Everybody is now navigating towards attaining success in combating or eradicating the pandemic that is ravaging the world. Now, the fifth factor, which is also significant, the key factor of success, is the time factor. Time management and consciousness factor, which we can refer to as TMC. Time management and consciousness factor. It is one thing to manage one's time. It is another thing to be conscious of the time that we are managing. We cannot manage what we are not conscious of. So we need to be present-minded when we are considering the time. Time, not only in area of the hours, the minutes, the seconds, but also in the existential value that we have. We exist in order for us to appreciate or to be conscious of the time. So in that wise, we have to be conscious of our being. For example, every human being on earth today has a privilege of 86,400 seconds to spend daily, on daily basis. So to spend in the sense that they are seconds that cannot be recovered. As soon as the seconds tick away, yes, your time starts now. It's just like the nation says your time starts now. So you are looking at this 86,400 seconds, but you have to be conscious of what you are doing per second, because at the end of 60 seconds, 1 minute has come. Thereafter, you begin to look at it. What have you done with those seconds that have gone? So if you want to succeed in life, you must be conscious of every second that passes. What are you using these seconds to do? Is it that you are loafing away, or you are carousing in public places, doing things that may not be profitable, which at the end of the day will aggregate to one's lifetime? When we are looking at it, if one becomes 50 years old, that is, if one is 50 years old in age, that person, man or woman, must be conscious of the fact, it's a notorious fact or hard fact, that he or she has spent 438 hours on earth at the age of 50. What have we done with those number of hours? What have we done with the remaining hours that we still have left? So 438,000 hours have been spent in the life of a 50-year-old person. Okay. It is now important for us to look at it. If we have not been conscious of this number of hours, or we have not been able to manage our time effectively as to knowing what areas of our lives we have prepared for, areas of our life that we have learned a lot of things, areas of our life that we have articulated our purposes, our objectives in manners that would help us achieve success, or areas of our lives that we have been able to navigate properly in a way that will make our existence meaningful and we'll be able to fulfill our purpose on earth, we have to be conscious of the fact that every second that goes, we grow older. We grow per second. So in that wise, we can now look at situations whereby some people who had lived long before, we can get examples from some of them. Take for instance, William Shakespeare. in the literary world, is a household name. There is nowhere in the world where the literary influence of William Shakespeare is not known. How old was he? William Shakespeare was born in 1564 in Stratford, England, and he died in 1616. That's after 52 years. If you want to look at it, William Shakespeare spent a total number of years of about 455,520 years on earth. If we look at it that while he was alive, he managed his time. He was conscious of his time, and during which he was able to write about 37 books or plays and 5 poems, including a sonnet, as a playwright. So is 455,520 hours on earth. If we exclude, that is from the number of hours he spent physically on earth, if we exclude 26 years of his growing, trying to prepare, trying to learn, trying to articulate, trying to navigate through the course of life. That means half of the years he spent, which may be calculated as 227,760 hours. That is for 26 years that he spent on earth, plus or minus as estimated or as, approximately. Now, he has been able to influence the world that even 404 years after he had died, William Shakespeare is still relevant in virtually all parts of the world. So what are we doing with our own lives? What is it that we have been able to do in terms of the time that we have set for ourselves? We talk of the life and times of people like the late Obafemi Awolowo. What were those? Not because of the position that he held, maybe as former Premier of Western Region or former Federal Commissioner of Finance under the Gerald Gowon administration, or as a political leader, presidential candidate of the Unity Party, but we are looking at Awolowo in terms of the success story, the legacies that he has put together. So within the time that he existed, he was able to put his feet on the sand of time. He managed his time. He was conscious of his time. In one of his write-ups, the late Awolowo said, well, I could paraphrase, that when others were busy carousing in public places, chasing ladies of easy virtues, that he, like few others, would sit down and be thinking on how to solve the problem of this country in order for people to be able to benefit from good governance. So if we look at it, we can now point to one or two things or several things that this man has done and has made him relevant. And that brings us to creating mindsets, what you can simply call good mindsets, global mindsets, courageous mindsets, and relevant mindsets as individuals, especially when we are trying to manage our time. Otherwise, the purpose for which we have been born, the purpose for which we have existed, will be defeated if we fail to manage our time. If we fail to be conscious of our time. We have to be conscious of the fact that we do not have the power to determine whether we will be alive in the next minute or not. So that determination will now give to us to say, okay, this very time that we know, let us make sure that we strike the iron when it is hot. We don't allow it to get cold. We also use our fire to burn something so that people will know that, yes, he was here. There must be a milestone that we need to create, especially if we need to manage that. So not just as an individual, but as corporate entities, as a nation, what have we used our time to do? Not in terms of hours, minutes, or seconds, but the period that we exist, or when we hold positions. Most people bask under the euphoria of, oh, I'm former this, I'm former that, or I hold this position, highfalutin positions. You say, okay, you have this, you have that. Yes, it is good to hold positions. It is even good to amass wealth. But the problem is this: amassing wealth or holding position in itself does not mean that you are successful. Yes, what it simply means is that you have occupied a space, and this space can be vacuous if you have no legacy to back it up. What kind of legacy? So the time will tell. So time and tide wait for no one. So let us use our time meaningfully and ensure that the very minutes that we are able to occupy a particular place, what is it that we want to do, so that even when we leave that place, references can be made, will be relevant. References can be made to, oh, when he was here, this is what he has done. That is how to manage one's time, to make sure that beneficiaries of our functions, beneficiaries of our core or process competencies can simply have one or two things to show that we have not just come to this world to waste time. We can also look at situations whereby you have a lot of people who have occupied positions of authority, but they have messed up. They remember them now in the negative, and for negative or wrong reasons. So they have only progressed in error, especially in the management of their time. Their time, that is their period. That is the period during which they operate. So this is one of those things. Then we can also look at this in terms of ensuring that within the course of managing our time and being conscious of the time, we can talk of value dispositions. What are those things that we have in the learning curve, in the preparatory stage, in the articulation stage, or in the navigation stage? Stage. What are those things that we have as our value discipline? As an individual, as corporate entity, as a nation, or as a society, what are those value disciplines that we have been able to imbibe or demonstrate? Now, first is, what is our operational excellence? Have we been able to excel in our operations? That is, within the social, cultural milieu, whichever way we operate, have we been able to operate with excellence? Is it not mediocrity that some people demonstrate or display or enthrone? So we need to have as value discipline operational excellence, that is excellence in our operations now, or units of operation. Then you also need to do other things like creating intimacy or loyalty among the beneficiaries of our functions when we are managing our time. It's part of value discipline. What value do we have? What value can we add? What value can we network? So within the purview of this intimacy, that is customer-client intimacy, or beneficiaries intimacy, or relationship intimacy, what is it that we have been able to, or loyalty, to say, okay, yes, even at gunpoint, or would support this, would be able to rely on this. So all these things are important as part of value discipline. Then you can also look at the issue of maybe leadership in your product or service. Now, what kind of leadership have you been able to demonstrate, whether in what you produce or the service or services that you render? You need to do that so that everybody is a leader in his or her own regard. Everyone is a leader. It depends on the role that you are playing at any point in time. So in that position where you command influence, in that position where you can exhibit some leadership qualities, what have you done within that period? Because you cannot be there forever. You cannot exist forever. So within the period of your existence, within the period of your holding a particular position, what is it that you have been able to do? What are the things that you have been able to exhibit? You have your eye on leadership qualities, yes. Everybody wants to be a leader. Everybody wants to be somewhere where you'll be able to command influence or inspire others to do certain things. Now, you need that value discipline of making sure that people can see that they can rely on you. We'll discuss that in the subsequent topics. So that is on subsequent factors. So that is the factor of time management. So you need to manage your time. You need to make sure that you are conscious of the time one way or the other. Then in addition, that is the sixth factor, which is the spiritual value. That is the spiritual value factor, or what you can simply call a spiritual factor. Every human being is spiritual. You are a spiritual being of a supreme being. You have not created yourself. So in that way, we must be able to demonstrate or exhibit the virtues of our Creator. One, in being good, in being selfless, in doing things in a way that you have integrity, in doing things that people will be able to hold you as trustworthy. You hold a position of trust. People have entrusted a lot of things to you. What are you doing with that position? So your spiritual value, we denominate this. It is not your religion. Religion will not enable you to exercise your spiritual value. Rather, religion will segregate. Religion will not only segregate, will separate. We'll say, okay, this, you belong to this, you belong to that. You see, it is something that would not unify. But spiritual value is a unifying factor. You are universal in your thinking. You don't look at people on the basis of where they come from, their race, their ethnicity, their nationality, their pigmentation, their color, the climate, the country where they come from. You believe very much that humanity, godliness, join you together. You share the same humanity and you share the same God. That is the spiritual value. So if you want to succeed in life, you need to ensure that you exhibit high level of spiritual value, so that when you are engaging people, you don't look at them on the basis of where they come from, the race they belong to, the ethnic groups, or whatever. No. The spiritual value will look at the individual as a fellow spiritual being who share the same supreme God. So in that wise, you now look at the core competencies, the qualities, the attributes that the person possesses, and you relate on that basis. So you don't enter aircraft and be asking which religion the pilot belongs to or which race the pilot is from. So you enter into something and you believe that, oh, this pilot is taking you to your destination from one point to the other. So, and he has the competence. He knows, he has learned, he has, followed all the necessary criteria of being successful in flying the aircraft. So all you care is just sit down and be expecting that you get to your destination. So the spiritual value is such like that you share relationship without having to discriminate, without being selfish, without cheating others. That is, what you want others to do to you, you do it to them. That is the spiritual value. And once you have that at the back of your mind, and you have that as your lodestar or as principle, then success is certain. Spiritual value, moral values, you need to imbibe it morally. You need to ensure that you don't harm others. It's unreasonable for people to think that, oh, God who is supreme, God who is powerful, God who is benevolent, God who is merciful, will want somebody to be doing evil on his behalf. You want to kill somebody in order to please God. That is religious madness. So what is important for success, for peace to be attained, peaceful coexistence, is for us to have spiritual value. It will bring success. You help others. Yes, you care for others. You show equity. You want equity, you come with clean hands. That is the spiritual value. You don't allow integrity deficits. You don't do things like dog eat dog. So we need spiritual value in order for us to succeed in life. Now, the seventh factor, which is also important, is the reputation factor. It's equally important. Reputation factor has to do with building reputation for yourself, going against being disrepute. Some people, and some people may say, oh, they have integrity, which is just pseudo integrity. They do not have reputation of being trusted. So we need to have that reputation to say, well, whether or not people are looking at us, we can be trusted. So people can have corporate reputation by ensuring that you do not engage in shady deals. This is quite different from the issue of integrity per se. But we are looking at reputation that is built on trust, reputation that is built on being God-fearing. So you have that reputation that people can say, yes, we can trust this person to do this, either as an individual or as a corporate entity. So we need to build our reputation. It is a factor of success. So that at every point in time, there will be spontaneity of recall. Oh, you want to do this? Yes, this is the person or this is the organization that can do it. Oh, you need treatment abroad. Oh, this is the country where you can go. Or you need security, and so on and so forth. In all ways, in our professions, in our vocations, in all our endeavors, we need to think of having good reputation. If there is no good reputation, it is not likely that success will come. Even if success comes, it will just be like a flash in the pan, something that will not last long. It will be transient, ephemeral. So that is one of those things that we need to imbibe. So we need to ensure that we build our reputation, we build a reputation around us that people can have confidence. Yes, the public can have confidence in us to say, yes, we have been able to do that. Then the eighth factor, that is a key factor, the eighth key factor is persistence factor. Yes, we need to ensure that we persist to have what we can simply call the bulldog tenacity, to say, yes, I will achieve this and I will achieve it. Even if there are challenges, if there are problems here and there, with persistence, you'll be able to surmount it. You have to have that can-do spirit. People will bring a lot of reasons why you will not be able to achieve it, why you will not be able to get it done. But no, you must persist. Let us give an example of a global product. A global product that has been in existence for over 200 years now. A global product that started even on a very shaky ground. That global product is Coca-Cola. Like some of us might have known, we just say, oh, Coca-Cola. How did this start? Now, the success story of Coca-Cola, which is about today the fastest selling beverage in the world, which has built reputation around itself for over many years, that once you open a bottle of Coca-Cola, you don't even need to pray before you take it, believe that, oh, it's okay. That product started. The recipe was prepared by one Dr. John Pemberton in May 1886 in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, when this thing started and the recipe was prepared, at first as syrup, and the inventor, Pemberton, was taking this thing to a particular place called Jacob's Pharmacy in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. Right. You look at it and say, oh, this thing, some of them are saying, oh, it will not be this, it will not. A lot of discouragement came, but he persisted. He believed, he was sure of his conviction. He believed that he would succeed. And he started. Even the name Coca-Cola was given when he networked his value with his storekeeper by name Frank Robinson. And when the product did not even sell, it did not fly, as the corporate people would say, something did not fly. There were many reasons why some people were saying to not. Then he Pemberton networked his value with a friend by name Asa Candler. And they were able to put together all these factors: the preparatory factor, the learning factor, the articulation factor, the navigation factor, that is moving from one place to the other, ensuring that at least this idea succeeded. Now, they were able to do that. Time, they were able to make good use of their time, manage it very well, and things like that. They put all these things together in a message that will sell this product, and gradually, the global brand began to succeed. And today, the success story is what we all share in terms of what we drink, in terms of the way the product has become spontaneous, especially you want to send someone to go and buy drinks for you. You are most likely going to say, go and buy Coke, even if you need other products. So what we are saying in essence is persistence is important, especially when it comes to succeeding in life. That is, for any purpose that you have set out to do, you must persist. You don't allow discouragement. You ensure that you continue. A pilot that does not want to see turbulence cannot fly, because there will be turbulence here and there. Taking off and landing are not easy. So, but what you need to do is to persist, to ensure that you do this thing and you succeed. So you don't allow discouragement, you don't allow people to say, oh, something is this or that. Then that is what we need to do. For success to come to us, for our efforts to be crowned with success, we need persistence. It is not easy, but it is desirable. It is something that we need to apply. It is something that we need to imbibe as a key factor of success. The ninth factor of success is the connection factor. You need connection in whatever form such connections take place. Connection, the right connection, the timely connection. And that does not mean that all other factors are not required in order for the connection factor to work. They are all interwoven. All the factors we are discussing are interwoven. So the connection factor is so important that if you have the right connection, whichever way it comes, you are most likely going to succeed. It will make things easier for you either as an individual or as an entity, corporate entity, or as a society. You need this interconnectivity, that is the connection. You need, because no one is an island to himself, you need one person or you need some people to link you to certain things. So because you cannot do it alone, you need this connection. So connection factor is also important. And there is one thing that we need to look at also. In this connection factor, there is this element of luck that determines success, whether we like it or not. It can just come. It might just be that, somebody somewhere is connecting you or is linking you. That is why corporate entities, they try to create customers through connections. Individuals create benefits through connection. So for success to come, you need to ensure that you make good use of the connection and you try to cement this. Yes, you move towards it, just like this MBO, that is this mind over objective expert, will say, this man that talks about this mind member objective, it's an expert in mind member objective, who says that the main purpose of any business is to create customers. The main purpose of any business is to create customers. So if you want to remain in business, so creating customer is a connection factor. That is, I'm talking of Peter Drucker. Yes, Peter Drucker is the man I want to recall. So he talks of customer creation. That is the main purpose of business. So, and this can come through the connection factor, because there's no way you'll be able to achieve this thing without, that is, necessary links. You talk of, even when you are talking of internet, it has to do with connection. One linking the other, one linking the other. And before you know what's happening, the whole world becomes a global village. So that you want to succeed, you want to get information, you want to get some body of knowledge, some corpus of knowledge. Through that connection, you get it. Oh, it's connected. This telephoning is connected. So you have a number of things that we need to look at generally. So connection factor is so important, is key, and we must be able to subscribe to that charter as one of the things that we need to. Then you don't cut the bridge. Yes, when you cross the bridge, you don't cut it. You allow that bridge to, because you may have cause to come back and pass through the same bridge. So that is one of the significant things about connection factor. Now, you look at another factor, which is the 10th factor, which is team building factor. This cannot be overemphasized. Team building is so significant that we cannot do without it if we want to succeed. You build a team, you create team spirit. Now, this can be illustrated simply by, if you want to clap, you want people to hear your clap. You can only do that if the two hands come together. The two palms, come together. That is where you can now clap, and people will hear that you have clapped. But if one hand remains and is just moving up and down, you are only waving. You are waving in the sense that it will not make any impact. So impact can be created simply by establishing or building team. So that is what we referred to earlier as networking values. But let us look at team building too, which readily comes to mind, especially when you are talking of football field. No matter how skillful, how much of dribbling a skipper can do, he cannot face the 11 players on the other side. If he claims that yes, he's so skillful and he alone as a skipper can defeat the other team, he will just be miserable. It is not possible. But if Team A has full complements of 11 players and Team B has the same, then the two teams can now score up and say, yes, this is what we want to do. But then, for any team to succeed, there must be what can be called team building. Apart from being a team, they need to make sure that they have team spirit, so that nobody will claim that, oh, the success or the goal is mine, or I can monopolize all the efforts, all the roles. I can monopolize all the wins. No. So we need to emphasize that team building is a key factor of success. Without team building, it is unlikely that anyone would succeed. There is no organization that can succeed without building a team. There is no group that can succeed. There is no nation that can succeed without building a team. So we need this. An individual too needs to build a team before he or she can succeed. Because you cannot in any way make available all your needs. If you identify or recognize your needs, you need people that will help you accomplish your purpose in ensuring that you meet these needs, or you meet your expectations, or you manage your expectations. So team building is so important and vital as a factor of success. Now, there is another factor of success, which is viable seed. Viable seed factor. The viable seed factor has to do with what you have sown. What is it that you have sown as an individual? You reap it, because there is seed time, there is harvest time. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. If you pour cold water in your front as you are passing through dry ground, you definitely step on wet ground. So, what is it that you have planted? What is it that you have done for others? Definitely you will reap it. There are no two ways about it. So, it is garbage in, garbage out. What you have planted, what you have cultivated is, you cannot plant maize and expect cassava, or you cannot harvest cassava when you have planted maize, or you cannot plant okra and harvest pawpaw. So there are situations whereby you must have done certain things for some people. You have helped them in the past, one way or the other. You have assisted them to do certain things. You may not get it immediately. It might be you or your offspring that would reap the benefits of what you have done. So, but whatever thing you have done, even when you talk of viable seed, in your place of work, what is it that you are doing? Are you planting mediocrity? Are you just doing it as, well, no matter what, I'll hand my salary, and that is all? Are you building up yourself? Are you building your capacity? Are you building your capabilities? Are you trying to gain experience? Are you trying to learn the ropes? If you do not learn anything, what are you going to rely on? Some people will say, yes, after 35 years of service, I'll retire. Look at the whole of 35 years, for God's sake. What are you doing? So, 60 years of it, depending on whenever you leave that place. Whether it is your own employment or whether it is other people's employment, it is what you sow that you will reap. So, if you try to sow hard work, you will reap success. Because no matter what, all those things that you are putting in, they would strengthen you. It's like you are trying to build your intellectual muscles. You are trying to build your corporate muscles. You are trying to build up your own self, your resource capabilities. your resourcefulness. So the more of this that you do, then success will definitely wait at the other hand for you. That is the viable seed factor. You need to plan what is viable. You need to do what is productive. Otherwise, what people will be doing is just mere activity and without productivity. So you sow productivity and you reap productivity. But when you are trapped in activity, what God is activity trap, motion without movement. So then you will definitely reap nothing. It's just like a case of a young man a little boy who was following his father in the course of picking a snail in the farm. He kept saying, as the father was going, the father was picking some snails while the little boy was deceiving the father. So at the end of the day, was saying, oh, he had got some. The father would say, put it in your pocket, because the father would be thinking that how would this boy see snail on the same path that he had passed through? So, but in self-delusion, the little boy was saying he had. So when they now got to their house and it was time for them to share whatever, the father said, everybody will eat what he had picked. And the little boy said, oh, I picked nothing. You will eat what you picked. So what we are saying in essence is that if you sow viable seed, you will reap bountiful harvest. No doubt about it, because it is the natural law that we will reap what we sow. So what are we sowing today? If we need success, we need to plant viable seed. Our leaders now have seen under this global pandemic lesson, yes, that they need to sow viable seed. Now they are not able to move out of the country in Nigeria. Now the hospitals that they neglected are the ones that they need to patronize. Now what they need to have, what they ought to have sown, yes, is what they now reap. So they were promoting foreign economy at the detriment of their own country. So it is important that for Nigeria as a nation to succeed, for our organizations to succeed, for our individuals to succeed, we need to imbibe the viable seed factor of success. So that the more viable seeds we are able to plant, the more successful we shall be. So looking at all these factors in totality, we can now say that yes, success is attainable. It's almost as natural as the air we breathe in if we consider all these factors that we have been listed. We have been able to, that is, we have listed all the factors that we have been able to list or outline and consider. But that does not mean that all these factors are exhaustive. In the course of doing this, we can still add more. We can still expand the scope of this discussion. It is just for us to be able to think out of the box and see what are those things that we need to do in order for us to be able to achieve. Because everybody wants success. It's a desirable phenomenon. And I strongly believe that as more of these factors we are able to apply, we shall all be successful in whatever thing we are doing, in all our activities, in our endeavors. It is not a rocket science for people to achieve success. All we need to do is to consider all these factors among others that we can individually think about. And I believe very strongly that we shall all succeed.